relief, isn't there?
All right. So it's still not quite 1 o'clock, but I think we might just get started. Okay, so you call yourself a love life coach, and what is your interpretation of a love life coach?
A love life coach is a little bit broader than imagining somebody just helping, supporting you, and offering advice about your love life. So, what I actually do is I take clients from perhaps even before separating when they're shall I stay, shall I go, in that deliberation stage. And I'm all for relationships working out. I want to make that really clear.
Hmm.
Um, and then what happens is if somebody is deciding to leave, then there's certain strategies to put in place so that they get the very best opportunities and the very best and most gracious departure and safe departure as well, that, um, importantly. And then there's usually a lot of, over the next 12 months, a lot of legal things. Now, that can be with children, custody, access, can be, um, going down the settlement road, although sometimes it even takes longer than that.
Hmm.
And and really supporting them in that time so that they don't make decisions with a lot of emotional energy behind it, that they make decisions with their head. They have someone pointing out different perspectives as their support and guide. And then creating their best life that they love, which we both know so much about.
Hmm.
And that could be, it could be what could be perceived as superficial things like a new change of image. It can be helping calm their nervous system because they would need that as a base for developing a new life.
Hmm.
Um, and making sure they've got the right tribe around them. They're managing their family. They haven't blown up their family or their finances. And at some point, for some clients, not all, of course, and various lengths of time, helping clients find the love of their life, manifest the love of their life. And really, to do this, it's about being the best version of themselves. So it's all very well to try and call in something, but in actual fact, we need to be that something ourselves to attract that. So there's a lot of focus these days on what can I get, about receiving. So I have a focus on what can I give, and you'll get everything.
Hmm.
There can be so many variations of all of this, and there can be clients who come for just one part, one section of this program. Actually, my programs do have, there are um, multiple choices, I suppose, but it's really bespoke as well because there are no two clients who have exactly the same situation. So I much prefer one-on-one coaching for that reason.
Hmm.
Also, the client needs to be disclosing some really personal things and be really vulnerable. And I find that's much better one-to-one. They build up trust with me. They may join my Love Life coach group and they may message me from there. They may message each other. But I find it such a personal thing is separating and repartnering.
Mm. So, yeah, there is a lot to it. So, from what I heard, you help people who are having trouble in their relationships to either save their relationship or to separate on good terms for both partners and children that might be involved, and then moving on from that to finding a new relationship or becoming the person that they would like to find to create a new relationship with. So, how did you become involved in all of this? How did you come about becoming involved?
How did I evolve? I was a hairdressing salon owner for 30 years, and I learnt at a very young age, in a very basic way, I suppose, that when you developed a close relationship with your clients and you see them through different phases of their lives, good and bad, and you have the ability to make them look their best, you would find that clients come back after 6 weeks and their whole demeanor and energy and body language has changed. And they'll say things like, well, I told him I'm not putting up with that anymore. So um, I sensed, wow, you've got stronger boundaries. You know more who you are. You are not now overgiving, you're putting yourself first. So I suppose that was my first introduction. And after 30 years, I had a car accident and had to sell my last salon to my one of my staff. And it was kind of one of the worst times of my life in that I I had to give up the very thing that I love the most besides my children.
Mm,
It was a part of who I was. So it was my sense of contribution, the appreciation I got from clients, the financial support for me and for my family and private school fees. So there were a lot of losses and the true stages of grief kicked in. And I'm very optimistic and resourceful, but I have to tell you, I went into a kind of big hole.
mm,
And then I thought, well, okay, my body is not going to stand up for the 14 hours a day and do the things it used to. And I don't see the salon running under management because all the clients will still be asking for me. Um, I had considered maybe I could just do consultation in the salon, which it would have been workable, but I would have felt like my hands were cut off.
mm,
So I went to a life coach because I'd gifted my son some sessions, and being a male and being 26 years ago, it was seen to be a bit of a failure. I don't need someone to help me organise and run my life. And I thought, well, I'm not one to waste. I'll use them myself. And the life coach asked me, what I was now going to do. And I said, well, I'm actually coaching other salons and I'm doing mystery client service. I'm writing policies and procedures, manuals, doing staff training. And he said, well, you are a coach. You could just, put your banner out now. And I thought, no, because people will come to me for one thing and it will lead to other things. And it's such a huge responsibility to be helping people deal with issues in their lives that I want to do the training. And so then it was, how will I fund training?
Mm.
And a business startup with $0. So I did telephone counselling on call at night that was diverted from Sydney to Adelaide, could be diverted anywhere, but I did that, and then I studied during the day, and then I managed to get a couple of people on back to work programs for 3 months that needed recent current work experience. And so that's how I started up with $0. I love $0 startups in business. um, it certainly makes you appreciate when you rise above that as well, and
Mhm.
feel really proud of also what you've done. So um, I was so determined to get as much knowledge as I could about partnering and repartnering, because it's been such a painful issue for me in my own life.
Mhm.
So I then decided that and I had the opportunity to take over and manage an introduction agency. And 26 years ago, there were physical introduction agencies, and there are still a few, but it's kind of like more like the elite um,
Mhm.
New York type ones.
Mm.
And so I went in there with great gusto, and the clients had not been looked after well, and were a little bit disgruntled. And so I thought, well, I'm going to start from the bottom up and ask everybody in for an interview so I know them well, rather than try to organise introductions based on what I'm reading and photographs.
Yeah.
And so they were delighted, because they were then getting 2 to 3 introductions a month that were high caliber and good matches. And so I built that up. And then for another singles social group, I organised functions and forums and had so much fun, because if it isn't fun, I don't want to do it. And so one particular forum was his needs, her needs, and and it was like a television show, seriously. Um, that anyone in the audience of any sex could ask either panel their opinion about things. For example, who opens the door? Who pays for the date? How do I know if she wants to be kissed? When
Mhm.
to follow up? I mean, there were, much more personal ones too, but,
Mm.
um, and then at the end of the answers, then I would perhaps offer my opinion. So rather than have functions where I just was the speaker, I decided to, let's have fun with this, and so I did that. And a single social group had a platinum program for their top tier clients, and part of that program was that they would come to me and have 2 hours coaching two separate hours or two together. And I'd help them create a multi-prong approach to dating. And instead of just using the social agency, it would be, what are you doing about networking? And in fact, have you told your friends that you're looking for a partner? Because they could probably choose better than you. Well, in my case, me. And it was, again, a state of the art thing for that time because I would help them um, develop their online dating profile and
Hmm.
and give them a booklet about red flags, about, you know, how to message, about getting it to a telephone call reasonably early on, the type of questions to be asking. And then later on in my career, it became video calls and, um, don't just sit there in your best clothes and let the person sit there in their best clothes. For example, um, you could say, "Oh, look, I'm doing house renos," and offer to show them around what you're doing, and quite often they will show you.
Hmm.
Because we always want to see the best in people and we want it to work, we often overlook a lot of red flags. So, for example, I was working with one doctor, and so, it's not to be elitist, but there's not everyone that's going to be a match for her. So she took a screenshot of one of the videos with this guy that she was talking to outside in his carport. And she had just looked at him. And I'd looked at, oh my gosh, the grass is 3 feet high in the backyard. Oh, it's all rusty. Look at the cobwebs. And I thought, it matters because you're a professional. You keep your place like a new pin. Just on that basis alone, this is not going to be a match.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, so you can probably hear that I've had lots of joy along the way. And,
Yeah. It's great to hear that you love what you do because there is kind of a gap, especially for older people now, because all the younger people are on the dating apps and they're all about just kind of hooking up. But for older people, like, what do you suggest for them to do?
I've got information about all of the dating apps, and there really only are a couple that I would recommend.
Hmm.
If most clients that would come to me, they're not after a hookup. They
Mm.
can organise that themselves quite well. They
Yeah.
don't need my help. And in any case, I'm here for the serious,
Mm.
long-term, intentional creating of a relationship. So,
Mm.
there are a couple of dating apps that are appropriate for that. And I talk about, the cost and the pros and cons. But again, I still talk about a multi-prong approach because it's one thing to sit there on a dating app and make it your whole world. And, I can say the best time, and this is true, to get on between 7 and 10 p.m. And that way and to do it each night, even if it's for 5 minutes, that way the system will put you up as one of the first people to have their profile displayed. And I can talk about all of that. But at
Hmm.
the end of the day, they're needing to go out and meet that person. And so they need to feel good about themselves. They need to have worked hopefully with me, about calming their nervous system. Um, they they need to have the social skills, the confidence. They need to actually be able to handle a little bit of rejection as well.
Mm.
Um, so, so I don't think just dating app is enough. I think
Hmm.
we need to look at all of the different areas. You know, when you're emitting radiance and you're vibrating at a high energy and frequency, if you go out, you'll find amazing things. You know,
Hmm.
people will start talking to you.
Mm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, and so do you work with men and women?
I do work with both, and I'm finding now more men are starting to be open to coming to a coach.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I've had unusual comments. For example, are you a real person? When they first send me a message. and, and I get that, and I've started putting my photograph up with some of my posts so that people do realise it's a real person.
Mm.
Yeah. But that stigma is say going a little bit that needing and choosing to use a coach
Hmm.
is is a really wise thing. You know, we use coaches for all of the other areas in our life.
Mm.
And why take 5 years to get to a point that you could be at in 6 months with having a coach?
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. And there are a lot of things that, like you say, people don't recognize red flags right away because they want things to work out, especially if they're attracted to someone. So having someone to work alongside them like you to help them with stuff like that would be really helpful. Like you say, save a lot of
Mhm.
time and money too,
Absolutely.
by the sounds of it. So these dating apps that you're recommending, are they paid apps?
Yes, they
Hmm.
are. You know, I don't say don't go on the Facebook free ones or anything because you might find a diamond in the rough. Um,
Mm.
um, but what you'll find, particularly with one or two dating apps, that they're for the serious minded, other people have paid to go on them. So you
Yeah.
could pretty much rest assured they're serious.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So with red flags, I think one of the things I'd like to mention about that is that, you know, I'm often bringing people back to connection rather than chemistry.
Hmm.
You know, that initial, oh my gosh, he's gorgeous, she's gorgeous. It it can tend to make you not look into all of the other things that may come back to bite you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, I've lived this journey myself because um, I was like the good little Catholic martyr girl who only believed in marriage. So I've never lived with anybody, but I've been
Hmm.
married 3 times.
Hmm.
And so I, I guess that was, and divorced 3 times. So that was the catalyst, I suppose, for choosing to go into this type of work. You know, how can I help people avoid this pain?
Mm.
And I've been in a new beautiful relationship for a year, and I have to say that when it's yourself, you know, I totally understand that your emotions get all over the place, and
Yeah.
sometimes you don't do the smartest things.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah. So there's many sides. There's many sides to my work, and
Mm.
uh, a lot of a lot of it has been also the mind-body connection about women who are, particularly women, over giving, over nurturing, over, I say, over bloody everything. and and how that causes us to be sick. And so I followed lots and lots of gurus, for example, Gabor Mate, and went to see
I
him.
love him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's so good. He says, when I see overworking, overgiving, I smell sickness.
Mm.
Yeah. And he also talks about trauma
Yeah.
a lot and the mind body connection and the trauma of, the trauma of being in a, a war zone and being a child with no roof and bombs dropping.
Mm.
And heaven forbid, that's traumatic. But he says that that's not as traumatic as seeing parents fight and argue.
Mm.
Wow. I mean, it's just profound, isn't it?
Yeah, well, coming from a home where I experienced that, it absolutely has affected my life for sure. I think it happened a lot actually to children of my generation, Gen X, and generations beforehand as well. Maybe not so much the
Yeah,
later ones.
yeah.
Mm.
I think I'm much older than you, but my parents and their parents had no skills about understanding and
Mm.
looking after children's emotional needs. And so it was, if you were naughty, you got a crack
Yeah.
with something. And that was, that was the only way they knew, but it was partly their frustration about the situation and they didn't know how to handle themselves, the fear of them being judged because their kids were naughty, the fear of how you might grow up. Oh, goodness knows what, but it's also become the elephant in the room, really,
Mm.
where families still, the dynamics are, let's all get together, but let's never ever talk about what happened. Yeah, so that means that we have to unpack a lot of it in our own way.
Mm.
Um, Although I do know about broaching these subjects in a way that doesn't blow up the family, but um, this happens a lot. Obviously, with my clients, they've come from, it might be, I could say, toxic environment or narcissistic, but it can be much more subtle with coercive control. But
Hmm.
it's still just as damaging. And so there's a lot of healing that needs to go on um,
Mm.
with that before we can have a healthy relationship with ourselves, be the parents we need to be, and have a healthy relationship with another adult. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so do you find that most of your clients are a certain age group?
I think yeah, I do. It's like being a hairdresser in a way that you attract people around your own age group and they relate to you.
Hmm.
A lot of people in my age group are, um, sitting on their walker or knitting, and And probably I should be too, because I've had lots and lots of surgeries in the last few years, and have a huge one to come. And most people would say, well, just sit in the corner and know your place. I find that I have some clients my age, but I have a fairly youthful outlook and way of looking at things. So most of my clients, I would say, would be 45 or 50 upwards
Mhm.
to 70. It's amazing even how many 75-year-olds, if you really scratch the surface, you find that they still would love a healthy relationship, maybe one that they've looked for forever and it hasn't ever been quite right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I guess too, in that age group, there are some who have lost their partner to, I don't know, to cancer or whatever, and they've been in a long relationship with their partner and then suddenly find themselves on their own. Do you deal with that kind of situation as well?
absolutely. And there are so many factors around that need to be delicately managed. And
Mm,
it's about, you know, understanding that that partner will be potentially the love of their life forever. Um, and so you have to have people that are quite evolved to manage it really well and perhaps get a coach's support. So, you know, the questions around, do you leave the photos out? Do you get rid of their things? How how do you how do you introduce this person to your adult children, and what are the grandchildren going to call them, and when's the right time to be doing those things?
mm,
Um, it's also about setting the standard from setting the boundaries and being the example from the top. No, you um, you can perhaps let your children know in the really um, most delicate but sincere way about that you is seeing a new person, but at the same time assuring them that their other parent will always hold that place.
mm,
And the things that kids would be the most worried about, in my experience, are number one, money. Is so it needs to kind of be on the table. We've got a prenup. She's keeping her house and renting it out. I've put mine in a trust. This is just an example, so that
mm,
people know that these are things that are options. Um, how can I get rid of those fears that the family might have and my friends might have, and also the thing that they're concerned about is, will I still have access to my parent? I don't want the partner there at everything.
mm,
So my advice is always do more, do more, do more, not ridiculously like a victim martyr, but if you were seeing your kids every Tuesday night for dinner and they're all there, still do that, but still be open to, the babysitting that you might have done, the drop-ins. That may be now that, could you let me know if you're dropping in? Um, but yeah, being available to them and letting them know that they're not going to lose time with you or their inheritance is a pretty big step towards them being open to a new partner.
Mm. I guess it depends on a lot of things too, like how old the children are and how long it's been since the partner has passed away. Yeah, different
Yeah.
scenarios.
And I'm mainly talking there about adult children, but with small children,
Mm,
it's it's kind of even more complicated because it is going to be the pseudo parent
mm,
perhaps 50% of the time. And
yeah.
then you've got the added complication and stress of your ex-partner um, kind of potentially, and I heard of one yesterday actually, um, being really angry that he hadn't met the new partner and yet they'd got engaged and how come my daughter's met him first and I should have been consulted about this. Now that I mean you need to understand whether that's just power and control and angst or whether it's kind of valid concern. And so, that's why, did I mention I believe in coaching?
Oh, me too.
I believe in coaches. I believe in the value of having support at certain points in our lives
Mm.
to get the very best outcome.
Yeah. So, did you say that you work with not just couples, but families, whole families as well?
Yes, I can work with whole families, and I did on the weekend, and that's a beautiful thing. Often it will be the adults, and then filter down. The adults might have their own session because they want to discuss things that they don't want to bring up in front of children. But yeah, that can be a really gentle, beautiful thing. And,
Mm.
you know, in coaching, you as a coach need to be prepared for anything. And there's a couple of there's a couple of things I probably couldn't mention, but I think I want to mention the most interesting, unusual, at the time, gobsmacking requests that I have had, and yet afterwards I realised it was the most beautiful thing. So a father came to me, and his adult son was in his very early 20s, and the adult son was had a little bit of a brain injury, not to the point where he couldn't be independent, but um, where he sometimes was a little more aggressive or inappropriate. And
Hmm.
and the dad came to me and asked me, about what what I thought or what I could do to support and help them around his son potentially getting into a sexual relationship. And at first I thought, oh my goodness, I actually haven't had that request before. And so I really thought about it, and I actually managed to find a lady who was a nurse previously, who was, you could say, a sex worker, but not quite. She was more of a sex therapist, I suppose. And she was somebody who helped people like that with how to go about things in the best way so that he didn't hurt anybody, so that he was aware of the other person's feelings, permissions, responses. And I didn't know I was going to talk about this today.
Someone needs to hear it out there.
Absolutely. Really, it's making me quite emotional because
Yeah, I understand because I know come across people too who, for whatever reason, have not been able to get out there into the dating scene and meet people because they're too shy or whatever. And they're disabled and they really struggle with life because they don't have that special someone to share their life with.
absolutely. And, again, it may be a little more challenging, but there are ways, there
Mm,
are ways around it. And, they need to meet their own person who also is looking for them.
mm.
I love a good love story.
Yeah, me too. I think most women do. I think a lot of men do too, but they just don't admit it.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
absolutely.
So,
So
do you work a lot with people in that position who are not able, like for whatever, whether they're disabled or or they're too shy to get out there? Do you work a lot with people like that?
Jacqueline, I do because I have a special needs daughter,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, and she managed to find her person.
Mm,
But I have to tell you that it's almost the parents of these young kids, adults, that need coaching because I just about needed, psychotherapy, like when it happened,
yeah,
because I didn't trust that anyone else could look after her.
yeah.
And every time that I saw what I perceived as a red flag, which was possibly just a pink one, and
Hmm.
and and maybe even not one at all,
Yeah, because you're overprotective. Yeah, I understand.
that I there were a couple of occasions that I really was not very nice.
Hmm.
Um, but fortunately, we worked it out, and I was able to explain to him in a way that he could understand what it's like to have a baby that's nearly dies and has a brain injury, and then long term um, physical effects, and how closely you have to work with them to get them as to close to a normal life as possible. And that includes where you might not in my case, might not normally send them to private school or $300 a week towards music and competitions and dancing and all the things once they develop an interest in something, so that you find what lights them up and where they need to be in life. So that that protection and love is so huge that when it happens, it's a lot to let go of them,
Yeah.
and to find ways to be there, so it looks like you're in the background to the partner, but so your child feels um, that beautiful raft underneath them from you,
Mm.
and knows that you're there always. And the end of the beautiful story is they're still together after 16 years, and she has two beautiful children and is a singing teacher.
Amazing.
Yeah, now that doesn't mean there's no struggles,
Mm.
but that is just a magnificent outcome. So, yes, so is my heart in it for them? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I get the feeling that people who come to you who maybe are disabled or very shy probably look to you as kind of a mum figure.
Yeah, well, I've got a 23-year-old granddaughter. So,
Hmm.
yes, they could do that. Um, there are, I can have my also hard hat on. And if, for example, I had a client last year who was going through a divorce and a
Mm,
property settlement. And she came to me and said, I don't want to be wasting money on lawyers. This is absolutely, digressing now, I know, but it would be awful not to share this because somebody also needs to hear this.
hmm
That how can I get the best outcome? And I'm not for shafting the other person or blowing up families or finances. I really love a win-win situation. But I have to say, when I see a woman potentially getting shafted, I come out like the lioness. And so they both went to mediation, which was $10,000 each instead of $50,000 each.
Mm,
And there was lots of toing and froing, and I looked at the proposals a few times for her, and I said, don't sign at the end until we've really gone through it and we've looked at the repercussions of every single point.
hmm
Um, and at the end, it looked like, and she thought that the settlement was really fair. He was getting the house, she was getting the bank account, they were having half the furniture each. She was getting the share portfolio, and yeah, there were a few other things there. And she thought she was about perhaps even $40,000 better off than she may have been.
mm,
And so she was feeling, well, this is pretty good. And because because I've been unfairly treated in settlement, my antennas are very, very sharp and lost.
mm.
So I looked at it and I looked at it in a few different ways. And I said to her, you know, this is actually going to really disadvantage you because who's going to be paying the capital gains tax on these shares when you convert it to money to buy your house? And she went, oh, what do you mean? And I said, no, you need to talk to the financial planner and the lawyer about this. It's she was ready to sign on the dotted line. No, 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 hold on. I know you're sick of it. I know you've been doing this for months and months on end. I know you just want it finished. But you also don't want a situation where you get a big bill that you weren't expecting and then don't have financial security, as lots of women don't who've taken time off to rear children and don't
Mm,
have the super that they could have,
yeah.
should have. And the upshot of it was that with going to mediation instead of a lawyer, and the fact that she didn't have to pay the capital gains tax on the shares, so she was able to ask for more money. Um, I actually saved her $165,000.
That's great.
So I think you'd have to say that 3 coaching sessions was worth its weight in gold.
Mm. Yeah, it's a big subject, and I know it's very important for a lot of men going through separation too. Probably not so much money wise, but with seeing their children and a lot of stuff that happens around all of that. Um, and yeah, have you ever worked with men in that situation who've had such a hard time?
Yeah, absolutely. The loss and the grief for them is
Mm,
so huge to the point where they can't focus on their own life, their own work, their own
yeah,
finances. And some of them are reasonably clueless about what to do with the kids on the weekends or their week as well.
yeah,
And and then because they're in grief, um,
yeah.
I've got a client whose ex-wife had an affair while she was pregnant with their third child.
Wow.
Uh, no,
Don't hear about that very often.
I
Don't think I've ever
know.
heard of something like that.
I hadn't either, and I've reiterated to him a lot. Do you know that is not a normal mother? That is
Mm,
not. I mean, I know. I'm not saying I was the Virgin Mary or anything when I was pregnant, but you're in that nesting mode where you're very close and aligned to your husband, partner, the father of your child, if he's there, obviously, sometimes not, but to be, have a full belly with the baby kicking and going and having, I probably can't say it on here. um,
I know what you mean.
an interlude or
Yeah.
interludes with another man, and then to have this new baby and still be doing it at 6 weeks old and not come home when the baby needed feeding.
Wow.
That
I'd be
is,
asking questions about who the real father actually is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know if he has because she looks identical to the first one, but then that could be through the mother's genes as well. And
Mm,
he's just whatever. I think he's sort of thought it is his child,
yeah.
and not
I
sort
mean,
of.
heartbreaking either way. Whether it is his child or not, it's just heartbreaking.
Can you imagine a mother, firstly doing that, but secondly knowing that you're going to split up the family,
Mm,
and thirdly knowing that this little mite is going to be going for access visits before she's even got teeth?
mm,
I mean, I kind of visualize it, and I've supported, and he's gone through lots and lots of other things as well, like his mum passing from motor neurone disease in the 2 years after this all happened, while it was still very raw, and having
yeah,
having settlement, and knowing that he sort of sometimes feels in a no-win situation because he knows he's in a highly paid role, but he knows he needs to work a lot to support the kids. So he's got to pay her child support. Then every second week he's got the kids. So he has the less time at work and the expense of that. And I might say the absolute joy and advantage of that. But it's a lot to manage. It's a lot for a person to hold and to do it well. And he's come out the other side where, he still gets lots of texts. Like sometimes the ex-partner wants to control the whole show years down the track,
yeah,
and to be able to help support people with putting in boundaries so that no, unless it's, and you don't ring me, text me,
mm,
um, and if it's important, then I'll get back to you.
yeah.
Don't ring me when I've got clients unless the house is on fire and Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, just to put some boundaries in place because there can still be lots and lots of control where you feel like you the puppet on the string.
Yeah. I feel like in situations like that, people often feel, even though they might have lawyers and mediation, like there still often is not enough as far as their own support goes. Um, so, gosh, we're almost at the top of the hour. I could talk about this stuff like for hours because it's so important. And everyone, I'm sure, can relate. They know someone who's been through a separation or is looking for a partner or has had someone pass away or whatever. It's so important. Um, and then that whole self-love thing too, which we haven't really spoken about. You've kind of grazed over it a little bit, but
Yes, it is. It's key, isn't it?
I think, sorry, what was
Self-love
that?
is,
Sorry.
oh, I just said that self-love is key to,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And so what I would love now is if you have like how do people find you? What do you have on offer for those who
Yeah.
are watching this now?
People can find me easily on Love Life Coach.
Hmm.
They can also find me on Judith Lawson, um, and um, and they sort of link together. That's the best way to find me. And maybe we'll put a link in here underneath or something.
Hmm.
So that makes it easier.
Yeah.
And what I'd like to offer um, five of your viewers is a free 30-minute session with me. It's not uh, it's not, work with me. It's not here's this offer that's really expensive, and it's just how can I best help you in this 30 minutes? What's
Mm.
your most pressing issues so that you can take that away and immediately feel more in control of one or two areas. And, it's not to say those people won't work with me sometime in the future, but I'm very much into giving and win-win situation. And yes, I do have a business, but I I think it would be just about impossible for me to love this work any more than I do and to want to
Mhm.
help people
Yeah.
move forward,
Yeah.
become unstuck, have the best life and the best love life, have the best family life.
Beautiful. And I really do feel that from you. So Love Life Coach, is that .com or is that a Facebook page or?
It's a Facebook page.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
So I'll post this in the group, and then I'll pop it onto YouTube as well, and I'll put the link underneath to that. And it's been such a joy talking with you today. I didn't know that you had such a wide range of areas that you work in, and amazing.
Thank you. It's such an arsenal of tools, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I continue to be educating myself. For example, I went to Melbourne and trained to be a practitioner in what's called orb genetics, spiritually you, which is it encompasses all the spiritual stuff, and I'm continually educating myself with podcasts, any information. I actually have two coaches myself. That's how much I believe in coaching. And I
Yeah.
have I have a coach who who coaches me in my own spirituality, my own meridians and chakras, and I have a business coach who also teaches me a lot about personal development, and I now have hot off the press is so exciting. I had a gathering of coaches from Adelaide, which is where I live, on Sunday, and I just wanted a small group. I didn't want a wine scoffling, card shuffling, black dress event where nobody actually gets to know anybody else. They're all like, let me get my cards out to everybody. So we all had an opportunity to speak about our businesses and who we help for at least 10, maybe 15 minutes throughout the brunch in
Amazing.
a lovely setting. And I've now developed not only a messenger group with them, but a new group, Adelaide Impact Coaches, and we've got other people too. For example, a an image consultant, because that's really important when people are going through change for
Agree.
confidence.
Yeah.
So it's going to be all the things, and we're going to hold our own retreat, and we won't have to organise anything except for a venue because we are our own guest speakers.
Yeah. That sounds amazing. I'd love to know more about that. And maybe we can have you back after you've had your retreat and you can share some more about that with us. Um, Amazing. Yeah, it sounds like you're getting a whole crew together where covering everything. Yeah, amazing.
Thank you, Declan. It's very exciting, and
Yeah.
it's about it's about what do I want my legacy to be?
Hmm.
Yeah, and leaving people better than I found them, and
Beautiful.
yeah, yeah.
I love that.
And I so appreciate you inviting me on here so that people can understand what I do, because it is very broad, and
Mm.
yeah.
It's been my absolute pleasure. And yep, I'll put this up in the group and on Face and on YouTube, and I'll definitely be sending you the link. And yes, thank you so much again, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you very much for having me, Jacqueline. I feel really privileged.
My pleasure.
Okay,
See you
bye.
then. Bye bye.